1, 2, 3. Let's begin. Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today we're talking about Undead Girl Murder Farce. Also, the fall 2023 upcoming anime. We have Yesh back with us from his echoey palace in Chicago. And Dylan here today from the middle of nowhere. As per usual. I'm your host Chris. Welcome to That Japanese Thing. How you guys doing? Good?
Going well, and yourself?
Yeah, it's been a better day than most for a while actually. So pretty good actually.
All of the hassles of moving and altering things.
Yeah, almost done with that. And it's
Yes,
better.
that's a win. It was 38 degrees Celsius here yesterday, so I did not come to Chicago for that.
I mean, that is a crazy temperature. What is that in Fahrenheit, Yesh?
I didn't see the exact number, but I think it was 124.
Holy hell. Literally holy hell. No, that's a crazy... It must be so muggy as well. You're right by a lake, aren't you?
That's the problem. This place is always humid, so it's just suffering. Oh, it's 104, 100.4.
Okay, that sounds more
100.4.
It's like body temperature is like 97, right? Something like that. Okay, cool. Well, not cool. Warm, hot, whatever. I'm sure you're in shorts.
Hot.
Actually, it's been like shorts temperature here for the last few days. I know it's getting cooler now again, but I'm sure that's going away. Maybe forever this time. It certainly feels that way during the middle of summer sometimes. Anyway, I forced you two to watch Undead Girl Murder Farce, right? And let's talk about that a bit. So this is a new anime that's come out this season. I think we're 8 episodes deep. I've watched up to 7 so far. Did you guys get all the way through?
I did.
Yeah, I got up to the end of 8.
Okay, so you're both ahead of me then.
Aha! How the turntables.
How the tables have turned, indeed. This is based on 4 novels, not light novels this time, actual novels, and not from Kadokawa for once. So this is
What?
Kodansha, probably.
Yeah, Kodansha is also fairly significant, but
it's
full novels.
It's like a second place to Kadokawa's, global preeminence as the giant publication house they are. But they
Brothers to Mickey Mouse.
Well, maybe smaller, but it's like, well, maybe you're not wrong. I suppose that's Warner Brothers in my head is still like kind of a major player, but I think it's fallen quite far in recent years. Anyway, so 7 years ago, 2015, 8 years ago, they published these novels. The last one came out in July 2023, so it's over, I guess. And then the anime must have started about a month and a half ago from the date of this airing. It has a manga that was also adapted, as most of these things do, in Shonen Monthly. And it's one of those genres I'm never entirely sure what it's actually called. But it's like maybe magical realism is one thing, or a kind of Western horror, maybe. In that it's about a half Oni in sort of the 1800s in Japan who during there's a giant military helicopter flying over my house right now. Let's just wait for that to go.
Oh, it's not coming through for me at all.
Yeah, it'll come through in the recording though. Anyway,
I call this
I'm
genre
leaving that
modern
in.
fantasy.
Modern fantasy.
Modern fantasy.
I don't know.
Because it tries to be
So-
a modern setting while having
So I
fantasy
was,
in
I
it.
was going through all the things on like Wikipedia. It's drama, fantasy, historical, and the way they describe it is like it's an alternative timeline. So it's like the real world, except monsters are real, basically. And the monsters that are real are all the famous non-IP infringing monsters, specifically. So we have Sherlock Holmes and his rogues gallery. We have Arsène Lupin and his stuff. We have Frankenstein.
Phineas Fogg.
We have Phineas Fogg. We have Dracula so far. I think that's all so far. I can't remember.
We have Jack the Ripper. I
Jack
suppose
the
that
Ripper,
counts as a Sherlock Holmes alternative. But we
Carmilla.
also have like vampire lore is a little bit more installed into this than you might think.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we have a descendant of Dracula in one of these. I think that's who he is. Well, they said like Dracula died, and then there's a kind of like a truce between the vampires and humans, and the vampires promised not to eat people and to eat like blood from animals or whatever. So we have anyway. Let's go back to the beginning. So the premise of this is there is a immortal being who is the great detective in the story. So basically, it is just a detective story. That's why we have so many other detectives in it. And her head's been cut off, but she's immortal, so she hasn't died. And she finds the demon slayer, the Oni Goroshi guy, and she's like, I'm tired of being just a head, please just kill me. But instead, they sort of realize that their situation, he's a half Oni, so slowly his like Oni powers are kind of consuming his human half, and he'd like not to die. And she doesn't ideally want to die, but she'd like her body back and doesn't want to exist as just a head. So they figure out that a mysterious foreign man with an M on his cane, I wonder, who could this be? Is the person who's caused all of their misfortune. And they go on a European tour to go and find him.
Of named characters. A European tour of named characters to go find him.
Exactly, yes, right. All the most famous
So,
villains of the 1800s.
from the
essentially.
way it was presented to the way that technology is being presented in the show to establish time period, it felt very much like someone had watched The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen
Yes,
and went,
yes,
but what
exactly.
is Japan, though?
No, it feels. We haven't seen an Invisible Man or things like that. We don't have like any.
But
like,
a lot of
things for that,
of the tech specifically, and also many of the references to like what the world is like, is very League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It feels literally like someone watched that and then adapted it to a more Japanese take. Sorry, Dylan.
It's more. Well, I mean, it's because it's a love letter to pop icons and literature of the late 19th century and early 20th century. Predominantly, there's some stuff that's a little bit earlier that makes its way in, but predominantly this is all the era of Sherlock Holmes, Lupin. It's all in the same
Era, correct?
sort
Yeah.
of kind of era, which is late Victorian, early Edwardian.
Personally,
And
yeah, I think.
same with Jack the Ripper. It's late 1800s.
But the idea of establishing a Moriarty-led enemy team and a
Hey, we don't know that
British
yet.
led
He's just an English guy with an M on his cane.
and the
could be
British-led superheroes of the rest of the world, especially with Annie the newspaper girl. I mean, for God's sakes,
Right.
it's very extremely similar.
Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, if you're gonna have like a detective kind of a spy thriller thing, the late 1800s, early 20th century is actually a great time to do it. Because you don't have instant communication. People can literally hide in the middle of nowhere. But you still have a lot of the modern convenience stuff that if you wanted to get your characters like somewhere quickly, you could. So you can do
You
a
don't
lot
have
of...
the level of forensics.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say forensics would ruin a lot of these mysteries.
Yeah,
but,
which makes deduction more
Exactly. It
important.
makes
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes's
Observation and deduction. Yeah.
nonsense actually viable police
viable.
science,
But
right?
also, I will say, from a writing perspective, the clues that they are pulling out of their observation targets make sense. It might be mumbo jumbo, but the author has clearly put thought into it to make it believable.
Do you know,
I didn't feel like it was trash at any point.
I mean, so Sherlock feels a little bit dumber than he has in modern incarnations of his character. But he's very, very much in line with what he is in like the Sherlock Holmes books and things.
Mm-hmm.
And his observations are very, Sherlock Holmesy, which I agree with you. What I found interesting was that the Japanese detective, what is her name? Aya Rindo. The head in the... She's like
The
a thousand
cave
year old head, right? Or whatever she is.
Yeah, she's like 990 years old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1,000.
And she has like a weird... It's a different type of logic. It's like someone understood how like a Western reasoning thing worked, and someone understood clearly how like a Japanese reasoning would work. I mean, both like her and Sherlock are coming to like very similar conclusions about things, but like the way they're doing it is just someone's really clued into like how these people would have thought, and has probably spent a lot of time thinking about how they deduce things and get to the bottom of things. So I mean, she's like much more like she uses like social reasoning and like judging people's characters and possible course of action to kind of decide what they would do, and comes to conclusions that way. Whereas Sherlock is using like the physical world basically as his
Pure observation.
pure observation. Who else do we have? We've got Lupin.
Lupin, who is fantastic.
I was going to ask you, what do you think about him? He's like a flashier. Well, he's not flashier per se, but he's
So, after having watched the Lupin III movies, we now have a bit more of an understanding of what the Japanese mythos of Lupin is. Like this incredible luck and this excessive confidence kind of thing, if that makes any kind of sense to what I'm trying to say. And this Lupin in this one is absolutely that. He tells people what he's going to do. He doesn't lie. He then goes up and meets any challenge that's brought up before him.
He's just full of joy as well when he's doing all of his like stuff, isn't he? Smiling,
declaring that he is the ultimate gentleman and therefore he will never cheat or lie, and then never cheating and lying while being a thief. It is incredibly fun to watch him come up against, especially in the later episodes, supernatural horrors and stuff, and then still be laughing and running while trying to still steal the diamond.
And did you catch like they did like one frame of the actual Lupin from the anime when they were going through his history? I mean, I don't know why I saw it, but like they were just going through. These are the various disguises he's gone through, and one was just the Japanese version. Have they? They're not. I don't know. Do you think they're going to bring in Goemon at any point?
No, certainly not. I think Lupin is out now.
Because they've talked about Goemon twice, right?
But they've talked about a different Goemon.
It's a different Goemon. He was the ultimate thief.
Yeah,
sorry.
You
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I understand that, but I mean, they brought him up a few times. And,
they brought the name up twice. I understand.
And, they brought Sherlock up in the beginning before they talking about him, and he showed up. So I was kind of just wondering if he's going to appear at some point.
I feel like it's more for juxtaposition against, the West's ultimate thief in folklore, or like France's ultimate thief in folklore, Lupin. Goemon is, the Japanese equivalent of, if you said like famous folklore thief, everyone's gonna say Goemon.
Sure.
I did think it was more about showing how Japanese thinking would win out versus the Sherlock Holmes thinking, because hiding in the pot, as it were, from the myth, turned out to be the most correct way to catch Lupin. Although in the end, he still did stuff. So I'm super happy with this Lupin, by the way.
I don't know if Chris.
No, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That part.
No, I know what.
You're not spoiling anything. Don't worry.
I'm not spoiling anything. I'm specifically trying to dodge anything that happens in 8.
You know when that vampire lady showed up.
Camilla, yes.
I was I was so convinced it was what's her name? Mine?
Oh, I
from
know who
the
you're talking
Lupin?
about, sort of.
Like the
Yes,
the
yeah.
lady from Lupin. What's her name?
No.
No, but
Kimiko? No?
she's
What's her name?
she's not actually that evil on screen. We just hate her because of the actions she takes.
I know, she just had a
But,
very similar like smile for a while.
Fujiko mine.
Fujiko, thank you.
Yeah,
Fujiko,
yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, no, the boobage was also very, very Fujiko.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this lady is clearly a mass murderer and psychopath, where
Yeah,
Fujiko
yeah.
tends towards to hurt you emotionally.
You know, Fujiko's probably done
I mean,
some things.
I read her as Carmilla initially, and
Yes,
then
yeah.
I was wondering because they had already done like a lot of vampire stuff, and then I thought to myself, no, you know, they're not going to go back into that now, like, and then they did. So it was Carmilla all along.
Yeah, but it's amazing how well that they've sort of blended everything together into a cohesive universe.
I will. That's very true. When we see heroes and villains of different genres getting together, it's certainly surprising. As a side note, they've also kind of painted the future episodes a little bit into a corner. Not into a corner. They've painted a future for us in this because I think, Chris, let me know. At the end of 7, does Jack appear?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because they've shown us Jack now, we've got our another part of the Japanese story coming through. The red Oni and the blue Oni.
Right, that makes sense. You know, there were definitely a few. I think they should bring in more Japanese stuff, but they are in the middle of Europe, so I guess it doesn't make so much sense.
Well, I just thought that was very interesting, that it's such a Japanese story callback, and it's happening in the middle of a church in Europe, with like religious hunters in the same church at the same time. I don't know, stuff got a bit wild, but the way that they're blending it in doesn't make it feel incongruent. It all feels like it fits in the world, which I was actually surprised about, because I still feel like, for example, Marvel is struggling to make magic fit into its like superheroes universe, and like this show made the magician, like, I was willing to buy it. I was willing to accept that he can just do that.
Yeah, and more than that, like, you know, the Monsters universe from, was it Universal? I think.
The Dark Universe,
Dark
yeah?
Universe. I mean,
With Godzilla and King Kong.
I mean, how much money did they spend on that? And this is just some person. What is their name? Yugo Aosaki. Just writing about something they like, and they've done a much better job.
Much better job, admittedly. But I think it just falls back to, it's because studios can't afford to take any risk. So everything they make is a by the numbers, built by committee storyboard, where this is clearly a passion project that made it through.
Sure, and I agree with that. I mean, clearly it wasn't good enough for Karakawa to take a risk on it.
Yeah, that's exactly it, though. The bigger guys don't want to take a risk. And so most passion projects fail, which is sad. But passion projects pay attention to the details, which is why we get something that feels like it something that feels like it comes together very well, like this.
Exactly.
Even though there are very disparate themes going on. Specifically when the bad guys rocked up in the middle of Lupin's little adventure, and Lupin's like, I don't kill, so the water doesn't go all the way to the roof, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, and then the villains just rock up and fucking explosions and gore happens.
Okay, and a last note for this. The music is great in the opening, isn't it? Like,
It's interesting that you say that, because I wanted to say the animation quality in this is great, but I'm finding the score lacking.
Okay.
The op is nice, but there's almost no good music in the episode, from what I can tell, unless it's happening in the background and I'm not noticing.
Right.
Do you guys agree?
I haven't noticed any music really throughout. I mean, it's certainly there.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
But it's not intrusive.
During the Lupin chase scene, you remember when Lupin went to go visit Sherlock Holmes, and then
Right.
he was like leaving?
Yeah.
Through that, I expected something a bit energetic, a bit like maybe silly even, because Lupin, every time Lupin's on the screen, something silly is happening. There was nothing. There was just some very casual, I'm not going to call it elevator music, but there was some very casual, relaxing music in the background.
Yeah. I thought
And
it was
I
supposed
do
to be
feel
more
like-
whimsical, maybe, than like exciting at that time.
I don't know, but like also during the talk between Holmes and Lupin and the talk between Aya and Lupin, I would have expected some, what's the word I'm looking for? Tension building music, I guess. Does that make sense? Like something with a little bit of a violin and like to let me know that there is something happening. There's a confrontation happening. I want the music to tell me that.
I guess I'm actually relieved there's not, because I'm a little bit fed up with some of the emotional manipulation music that you get in shows sometimes.
That's also true, but like that's the thing though. The music is another paintbrush. It's a thing to add to the scene. If they're not emotionally manipulating you, the music's letting me down.
Okay. I mean, that being said, it's perfectly entertaining regardless of
Good show.
of music.
Generally
Yeah.
speaking, I'm enjoying not only the mysteries but the characters. There's nothing that lets me down in this show.
Right? I mean, it maybe it's not the best show this season, in any individual category, but like putting it all together, it's pretty great. Like you
I'm
could
very
say,
happy with
oddly
it.
enough, I think maybe the Giant Cat show, Deki Nico, is maybe the best animated show this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it, but I think it's got a good wholesome message.
I'm kind of over it already. There's no plot. It's just
No.
it's gone to the point
It's
where
lots of life.
we've seen all of the okay. There's a giant cat. The giant cat does things a human should do. That's the entire thing. At least
I'm only watching one show this season so far, and that's Zom 100, and that's been good.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty good as well.
I'm doing Zom 100 and it's the other sort of spooky one. What's it called?
Gathering
Sorry, give me a
Darkness
sec. That's it.
Yeah.
It. Gathering Darkness.
or Gathering Dark.
not
or
too
whatever,
bad
yeah.
either.
It's it gives you chills every now and then.
I
But-
will say,
yeah.
I am putting on the back burner. I'm in Eminence in the Shadow season 2. I want to just binge that. I fully expect to love this season as well.
As long as you don't force me to catch up on 2 seasons to be able to talk about it, we'll remain friends.
I kind of don't think I need to ask you guys to talk about this because I'm willing to admit that Eminence in the Shadow
Yeah.
it's
But
not a very strong story.
to interrupt you, I'm just ignoring second seasons of things when I'm talking about what's maybe the best.
Oh, I
anime.
suppose
You know what
that's
I mean?
also true. Then Zom 100 is the only original I'm watching, although I will admit, after this, I am going to watch the rest of this season of this show. But I am going to wait until the end of the season to watch it because I hate cliffhangers.
Right. Probably the best story. But I mean, as I was saying, like individual components, this is maybe not the best. But you have like My Happy Marriage might be the best like written story, and then like the cat thing might actually be the best animated one. Oddly
I
enough.
actually think this might have the best characters this season if we ignore second seasons.
Yeah.
Best
it could be true.
characterization, at least. So, the most important thing for me when I'm watching a story is that I care about the characters or I'm interested in what they're doing at least. And I care about these characters and I'm interested in what they're doing.
Although individual
Only Boy
characters
has
maybe
irritated me. But
Level 1 Demon Lord and One Room Hero might be slightly more interesting in some ways. But like putting everything
Yeah.
together, great. It's a great show.
This show-
there's
this-
nothing.
this show
there's nothing
really does
you'll
win so
regret
far.
regret doing watching this show. It's not a waste of anyone's time, probably.
certainly that.
Yeah.
Probably
And I would
maybe
say
still the
if
best
you-
show if you were ignoring not sequels is maybe Mushoku Tensei 2. That continues to be like a superbly produced show, quality wise.
Very well animated.
Having individualized ops for every episode is spectacular.
A little excessive, but
Yeah.
also fine, sure. I mean, Chainsaw Man had individualized
Endings,
ends
yeah.
for every episode, so I feel like that's a waste. I feel like the people could be drawing other things, but
You
I mean,
know,
whatever.
I've realized why they do it. They do it as like a narrative device to just cover parts of the light novel that don't
Oh,
really
yeah,
need
that makes sense.
much work. Verbally.
Adaptation,
Yeah.
yeah. That
Anyway,
makes sense.
moving on. I think I'd give it a good 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. What do you think, Yash?
Amusing that you said that. I literally was going to say I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it a fair bit, and it wasn't a waste of time.
Strange that we're so in agreement. Dylan.
I don't think like I'm not drawn to it nearly as much as you guys are, but I think that it is well put together, and I think that if you really like fiction and sort of the news icons of that late 19th century, early 20th century, then this is definitely for you. You get to see a whole bunch of names. I'm just waiting for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to make an appearance at some stage. That's got to happen sometime.
For sure.
But yeah,
sure.
if you like that kind of deal, this is definitely going to be something you
I mean,
enjoy.
if it ever goes on an American road trip, I'm sure we're going to go like to Sleepy Hollow and all those sort of places.
Mm.
Anyway,
As a side note,
Yeah.
sorry, before we sign off, did you enjoy? I was wondering why Phineas Fogg was in it. It felt like he was not on the same tier as all of the other people that were called out. But while wandering through his mansion, they went through the Japan section to show off Japanese things that Phineas Fogg had seen in his round the world trip. And I was like, that's why Phineas is in here.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
convenient rich old man, right? You know.
Well, he's also the most well-known explorer from that time period, from that specific era.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can put
Well-
Japanese things in because, hey, it's Phineas Fogg's mansion. I thought that was that was almost classy.
I mean, it's around the world in 80 days, right? So that's 1873.
Something like that.
So
yeah.
it is like a lot of the referencing comes from that kind of era. So it's important for them to reference as much as they can. Phineas was like a really nice Easter egg.
It is also very tasteful. You're right, Yash. Like normally, there would be some shoehorned Japanese culture stuff.
Some shoehorn nonsense.
Yeah.
I found a sword that cuts. Really great. But nope, we got Phineas, who makes absolute sense that he went to Japan.
Okay, but that'll do it for that discussion. But before we sign off, just a look at the upcoming anime season. We're getting a bunch of second seasons of things that, Spy Family, Doctor Stone, season 2.5, sort of. We got the Saint's Power is Overwhelming, another season of that.
Faraway
And
Paladin.
Faraway Paladin, Kanajo no Kanajo. That sort of stuff. But what was it we were talking about yesterday-ish that we were looking at?
Undead Unluck is an interesting one that is coming up. It's not great, but it's good. The 100 Girlfriends Who Really,
That's-
Really Love You is going to be unnecessarily popular, but it's more of it's trash, but it's going to be disguised well.
We'll review it. It's being aggressively marketed and advertised at me, so I guess I have to watch it.
Every couple of years, a new rom-com becomes the word of the day, and there hasn't been one for the last season, and in fact, last 2 seasons, I think. As Rental Girlfriend attempted to take the role, but Rental Girlfriend is just not that show.
No, the two seasons ago we had the depressing one. The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah. I gave a girl an umbrella and now she's in love with me, yes. But the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, Really Love You has taken over the manga rom-com department. It's crazy popular. So this is the launch of the next what's the one where the guy had to tutor 2 girls and then never mind. I
Tutor
forget.
5 Girls was Quintessential Quintuplets.
Quintessential Quintuplets was the one that came after it, and then we've had one of these every so often, and this is the next one.
Tutor 2 Girls was Cookie's Nest. Yeah.
That's it. Yes.
Right, right.
Nest, then quintessential quintuplets, and now this is the next one. So it'll be animated similarly. It'll have similar music, but it'll become popular and it'll sell lots of figurines. Then we have the thing that irritated me, FLCL grunge.
Yeah, oddly enough, like, so yes, you described it as a Trigun CGI fest, but as a bad thing, so.
No. I didn't describe it as a CGI fest. I never said that, firstly. And secondly, I never described it as like Trigun and a bad thing. I said it's a bad thing because they're going to try and tell the same story, which is not what Trigun did. I never said it was a CGI fest, firstly. And secondly, I said it will be bad because they'll just try to retell the same story, which is very different to Trigun.
Okay.
Let's get my stance correct there, because I'm not changing my
sure I
stance.
misheard all the words.
Yes, come out swinging, yo.
Well, Dylan, you were there for that conversation.
I was there. No, I'm not fighting you. I'm not fighting
I'm just
you.
presenting
I'm not
the
fighting
case.
you.
Ragnar Crimson is shonen trash, but it will be fun shonen trash, so I expect that to be popular. I'm in love with the villainess.
Yeah, there's a few like that we just wouldn't know until we start watching if they're any good or not.
Oh, sure, certainly. There's some that are not based off of novels and stuff. So, but there's amusingly a Korean one in here, like not from an anime or a manga. It's from specifically a manhwa.
What's that one?
Called MF Ghost.
Okay.
And that's something. I'm not going to be watching that, but it's interesting to see a pure Korean thing, because the last pure Korean thing we had adapted was Tower of God, which people said was going to be big. I thought was going to be big, and then it just flopped.
So there's also the Apothecary Diaries.
Apothecary Diaries, yes.
Which people have been talking about for like about a year now, but if you watch the preview, it's just like a girl that like is like happily drinking some tea and she's like, poison, delicious. But it's a imperial ancient Chinese kind of thing. So that'll be interesting. I kind of like that era sometimes.
Oh, we were talking about people pissing away money on ops and eds, Chris.
Yes, yeah.
If you go down a little bit, Paradox Live, the animation, is people pissing away large amounts of money on an entire show.
You're not wrong.
So I happen to know that they have spent a large amount on
but
this show.
that's the Japanese equivalent of like the Dark Universe, made by committee kind of anime that someone's put a lot of money into and they have to get a return on it.
Oh, Chris, I found something I didn't see yesterday when we were looking. Kikansha no Mao wa
I did see
Tokubetsu
that,
Destiny.
yeah. The Returners.
A Returner's magic should be special. This is a very good, very, very good manga. Extremely good.
So
I don't know what the adaptation will be, but I will tell you that the story in this is very, very, very good.
is it about a guy who's returned to Japan? Is that the returner
No,
part?
Japan's not involved in this at all.
Okay.
So this is a returner story in a fantasy setting. So it's purely a fantasy setting. The guy dies and then returns 20 years to the past.
Okay. All right. Oh, I see.
In his own world.
Huh.
So no world shifting per se. It's a pure returner story. I forget what the word for that was, but there is a word for that. And now that he's in the past, he's going to overcome the politics and crap that kept the world from being ready for the great disaster that is to come.
Okay.
And then it's a weird mix between politics, drama, and shonen, because he has to overcome people's politics to make them all face in the same direction to fight the oncoming horror, because nobody believes it's as bad as it is.
That kind of just makes me feel sorry for him.
But it
Because
does add
if someone had to do that in our world, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, it just no one would care. No one would pay attention. There was a movie about that recently, about comets coming from space or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
regardless, I will say the main reason why this was so good is because of those interpersonal relationships and politics. Changing the story of like your more modern brain dead isekai. Oh, it's a game system. I have stats. I go into the Adventurers Guild. I become S class. Everyone listens to me. The world becomes mine. There's none of that in this. It's a magic high school initially, actually, which is the worst setting to start out with, but sure. And then, yeah, he tries to build up his reputation enough that people have to listen to him. And there's a lot of betrayal and stuff in it. So it's an actual deep story that is actually good. And I don't want people to ignore it just because it's almost isekai adjacent, I guess you could call it, but it's not isekai.
This might be a bit of a dumping ground, season-wise, I think.
It does feel like it. Next season has a bunch of stuff to be excited for. We
winter
looked at
season
one
you're talking
season
about, yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Winter season, correct.
But yeah, so this is
we looked once
mostly
over.
second season series, that people kind of know will do okay, I guess.
And a bunch of isekai, and there's, I think, 2 shoujo isekai,
Yeah.
villainous isekais coming, and it does feel a little bit like a bit of a filler season.
Very light on high school stuff, surprisingly, I guess.
There's a couple of... Okay, so this might not count as the exact same, but there's a fair number of sports anime that will have high school as their setting.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I do agree that this feels like a bit of a dumping ground season before the people drop their hits
Well,
in winter.
I think this is the Japanese school holiday season, isn't it?
Oh,
Fall?
interesting. Well, you'd think they'd want something entertaining to occur in the holiday, though.
Right. Or people are just coming back to school now. I'm not entirely sure when Japanese school holidays are.
That might make more sense, because then people won't have time to...
Yeah. But like
watch
December for like Japanese kids is, well, school is well underway already and you can't go outside, so you have to watch TV.
You have to watch stuff.
Yeah.
I will say, before we get even close to the season, Solo Leveling is coming out next season. Guys, anyone who's listening, Solo Leveling, I think I'm going to be binging that while it's happening. Join me for
Orodake
that.
Rebu Apu Naken. Solo leveling. Yeah, no, Yash has been speaking about it for years now.
Yeah, I literally have. It took over the manga industry for a tiny bit.
And as we said,
and
also Mashal Season 2.
Mashal Season 2, yes.
Urusei Yatsura,
So Mashal
second
is
season.
going further into the comedy. The author actually improved his comedy towards the end of the last season. In the manga, at least, his comedy actually got better after that. So expect better gags. The action scenes might not be as prevalent, but the gags are going to be a bit better.
Yeah, no, I'm tired of him just winning everything as well. So hopefully it's just more funny. That would be good.
It's more funny. And then, yeah, MASH Season 2 is something I'm going to watch as well. Although with MASH, I might wait until it's finished and then binge.
There was supposed to be a mecha anime coming out. It just doesn't seem to be anymore. So I don't know when it's been moved
There was
to.
a mecha anime for winter. You're right. There was a mecha anime.
It was supposed to come out in
announced for winter.
fall, and then I think they moved it to winter, but it's just not being shown.
I vaguely remember
anymore.
being excited about it coming out in winter, but you're right. I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, don't know what happened to that. I'm sure we'll find out about it eventually.
We'll find out eventually.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. That was fun. And yeah, bye for now, everyone. Ciao.
Bye, everybody.